Hi, my name's Judy.
And I'm Ceci.
And together we are
Two Girls on a Mic. Do elevator music.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Two Girls on a Mic, an episode that we are going to talk about men,
women
versus women. Like
how it's being portrayed.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The competition that shouldn't even be there. But
right. Yeah.
People make it a competition.
Yeah. So that's where we have our special guest, Steve.
Hi.
You guys are finally seeing Steve.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah.
I know
Not exactly the best time for me to be on the camera.
But you look cool doing it.
I didn't tell you guys this, but he's a pirate. So he took time out of his adventure to be here.
Just to give some information, just because I feel like it's important for me to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So the beginning of last month, I got diagnosed with Bell's palsy. It's kind of similar to what Justin Bieber have, but not as severe. So the left side of my face is paralyzed for the meanwhile. But I've been going through acupuncture, taking some medication, and massaging it. So it's getting a bit better. So if I can't pronounce certain words, it's because of that. So yeah.
Thank you for the disclaimer.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm not a cool guy.
And this is your first time in the office. The last time I think it was like in the garage.
Oh yeah.
On the episode, yeah.
Yeah.
So
we've upgraded.
No, yeah, of course, yeah. Awesome.
But like we always like to start, we want to talk about our week. Mm-hmm. So as our guest, how has your week been?
It's been very quick. I do love that the weather's finally getting warmer. Yeah, dude, it's been amazing to just walk outside. Mm-hmm. You know, so it finally feels like winter's over. I mean,
yeah.
So, just been quick. Just been working, gym. It's been chill. But you guys?
It's been pretty good. This was the week I ended up joining Judy's all women's gym.
Oh yes.
Because I don't think I mentioned that in the last one.
I don't think so.
But I signed up and I've been going for a week now.
Mm-hmm. Only a week?
I know, it feels longer, but it's only been a week. But it's been good. It motivates me, and it's like, I always thought I wouldn't like working out later in the day because I like doing it when I woke up.
I get that.
Because then I'm like, I'm not going to want to go later. Mm-hmm. But I feel like since I know that there's people that are there to like tell you what to do, it's like all I got to do is show up. Mm-hmm. So it like takes out the hard part.
Mm-hmm. Of coming up with workouts.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My week has been pretty fun. It was actually my birthday last week. Mm-hmm. To say the least, my birthday was an adventure.
We had a lot of fun.
It was quite the night for sure. Memorable.
Yeah.
For sure. 31?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 31. You said you got crazier on 31 than 21.
Oh yeah, my 21st birthday was super chill. I went to dinner.
Can you put that picture up of how you guys were dressed?
Hey, it was a cool thing back then, okay?
They were wearing cardigans and
you know how before it was like that business casual look was a thing? Yeah, that's what we would kind of dress like.
What's wrong with that?
It looked like they just came from the office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but definitely way more memorable. 31 than 21. Yeah. I remember everything for my 21st birthday.
That's true. Yeah. Judy let out her Boyle Heights side.
All night, I swear. All night.
Yeah. I'm not getting copied on that.
But yeah, so I mean, thankful.
I'm thankful for all my friends that were there. First of all, my birthday was on a Thursday, so the fact that you guys went out on a Thursday shows a lot. Yeah. And the fact that you guys had work the next day.
Yeah. But she was also trying to get us to skip.
I was having a lot of fun. I'm sorry.
She was. I think you like traumatized me so much. I had a dream that you were not letting me leave your house. Did I tell you about that?
No.
So that night after we came home from her place, I fell asleep and I had a dream that it was still her birthday and we were still there. But she was not letting me leave. Or Fabi. And Fabi was like, Judy, I have to work. And Judy was in Fabi's dream too that same day. That she was like peer pressure.
Oh, whoa.
I know. I was like, and you know what the funny thing is that when I told you that comment about me being like Freddie, I was wearing a Freddie shirt.
This is Freddy Krueger.
I get it. I know. I'm hit. I understand. I like horror movies. I can't really express as much, so that's weird.
It is.
Shared dreaming? Whoa. I didn't think that was an actual thing. What I'm grateful for. I think the same thing. I think the fact that we were together all night Thursday, again yesterday, and today.
Yeah.
I'm tired of you guys.
I know. I think the same thing, really, and not to kind of copy what you're saying, but especially because we did have big moments that occurred during that birthday, and I think we definitely saw sides of us that we don't really see much.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot of things. And I don't know, like I already knew that you guys were very supportive, very
down.
just very down.
For lack of a better
So
word.
it's nice to be reminded, not to be reassured that your friends are literally your family.
Yeah.
Especially you guys. So yeah, I'm definitely grateful for you guys.
Aw.
I'm gonna actually break this. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's gonna sound weird, but Judy said it before. I'm thankful for myself this
Oh
week.
my god.
Listen,
Just
as you know, if you listen, I have been going through a rough time mentally lately, and I feel like I'm slowly starting to get out of that rut. And I feel like the other day I had like an epiphany, I guess, of like, I always give this advice to other people that you can have the greatest support group in the world, which I do, but it comes down to you being able to lift yourself up out of that. And I feel like I'm finally doing that for myself.
okay.
So
You are the one with the legs. So yeah.
That's me.
No, I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. But like we said, for today's topic, we're not gonna get into like men versus women. Well, we are, but like,
But why that is?
yeah,
and
because
why we even think that way?
because within the last few years, I'd say,
Yeah.
there's been an uprising of like feminism, men's mental health, and just the experiences that men and women go through separately, and how lately, I mean, I am always on TikTok. I'm always seeing story times of like women being like, oh, like I was walking through whatever and this man was harassing me. And then now I see more videos of men where they're saying like, I feel like I can't do anything because I feel like women are going to take it the wrong way. And because of that, I feel like when people talk about mental health with men or women, it's starting to feel like, well, we're more important because we can't do this. Or like, no, we feel like we're more important because we can't do this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I know Steve's very like passionate about genders, equalities. So we figured it'd be the time to talk about that.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you actually did research, which we appreciate.
Just little cliff notes on men's struggles, not just them, but women too. So I
Right.
mean, things I already knew. I just kind of looked more into it just to be more educated. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we could start with, we were talking a little bit before this, and how, I mean, I'm just going to go based off the last thing I remember.
Right.
Of growing up, right? I know we could speak on how we grew up. I never really got the, like, oh, you can't wear, like, shorts or, like, a tank top or something when your uncles come around. Right. But I know some girls have. Thankfully, I didn't go through that. And now I'm starting to see more like, well, what are little boys going to think if they're growing up and kind of seeing that, like, men are the issue, right? And the main stem of this is a lot of people say men are trash. Whether you mean it or not, you could or you, it's just, at this point, it almost seems like a joke.
Yeah.
But there are people that use it, like, for real.
Like we mean it.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not healthy, because how would it be taken if somebody said, oh, women are, they all suck, right?
Or like the whole stereotype, like, oh, all women are whores or hoes.
Yeah. So just taking into consideration, like, this affects everyone's mental health starting from when you're growing up and seeing that on there. So I kind of just want to, like, you have a son, so I want to hear that. And I want to hear you, since you grew up and I want to say it's like kind of a change in time. And you never really start growing up. you're always adapting.
Yeah.
So like how you were when you were a kid to how you are now, like how your mentality has changed, or
Yeah, no, that has.
so.
Oh, who's going first? Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just waiting for like who else is going to talk now. It's funny because growing up, I never really noticed that I was sensitive. Even me having to admit that I'm a sensitive guy at this point in my life is kind of huge, and I don't think a lot of men could say that unless they're. I mean, I'm not saying I'm mentally stable. I think we all have issues, but I definitely feel like I've grown emotionally. Because growing up as a kid, especially coming from a Mexican household, and to this day, I've never seen my dad cry. I've never seen him cry, and the only time I don't think I've ever heard him say "I love you." I've seen it through text, if that counts, but I get it. Like I understand that he grew up at a time that men were supposed to not really show emotion,
Right.
And also he worked 2 jobs all during my childhood and my teenhood too. And so because of that, I don't know, like maybe that's why I was more sensitive, because I was more raised by my mom. But I saw a lot of the kids I was around were almost similar to where, like my dad, where they didn't display any sort of emotion or feelings or anything like that. So it was tough because I didn't understand how emotionally unstable I was growing up, especially when I was going through like certain breakups or feeling a certain way that I didn't have an outlet,
Right.
or anybody to really talk to.
Okay.
And eventually I met the guys, and even then we all had our own shared problems.
Right.
And I think we're all at a good place where we're like we've been friends since 8th grade, at least some of us. And we're 30 now. We're finally at a point where we're actually comfortable being emotional, like being actual vulnerable with each other. And it's still a work in progress, Right. But I think that says a lot that it took us this long to finally get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot about men out there, that some of them don't even have a person to talk to, or they don't have the certain income to afford a therapist or that kind of healthcare,
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because the suicide rate for men is a lot higher than women.
Yeah.
That is true.
And there's definitely more services for women than men, because men, I'm not saying that they have it rough, because everyone has it rough.
Right.
We all have different problems.
But I feel like you hear more of like women's shelters and
Exactly.
like,
There's
things
more
catered for women.
And what's heartbreaking is that there's a lot of discrimination towards men, not in the sense of, like the wage gap, because I mean, obviously there's a wage gap for women, but in the sense where like we are supposed to just we're supposed to display this obedient, hardworking, always grinding kind of lifestyle. Even if you're in the gutters, even if you are fucking homeless, like, oh, you better get a fucking job and get to it, like you can't just sit there and no, like, dude, we all have our fucking issues, and some of us can't do that,
Yeah.
And everyone always expects men to get it done. And again, at the end of the day, I get it, because I do feel like part of masculinity is to be responsible, to be stoic, and I'll get to the stoicism in a second, but to do the right thing. But it's hard to do that when you have this embedded trauma from your childhood, because at the end of the day, that's where it all starts, your childhood, And I'm sure you guys know what stoicism is, right? Stoicism?
No.
I don't think I do.
So it's in the sense, I feel like it goes hand in hand with masculinity, and it's in the sense of not allowing your emotions to control you.
Okay.
And don't confuse that with like you just don't feel emotion. It's more like you're aware of what you're feeling, and it's almost like you're putting a pin on it. It's like, okay, I feel upset, but at this moment in time, I'm not going to allow it to affect.
It's like you got to keep going.
Exactly, and just being in control of yourself.
Okay.
And I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with masculinity, because at the end of the day, you need to do the right thing. You need to protect the people you love, and be responsible for not just for your actions. You know.
Okay.
So.
And you know what's interesting? I like speaking about like masculinity, because obviously toxic masculinity is a lot more talked about nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard to, at least from what I see, because my algorithm is always women. I hardly see videos of men talking.
Okay.
So when I do, it's because I'm watching with Matt. And he had a video come up the other day of like basically asking, why is it more acceptable for us to be like, oh, women are sensitive because they're going through all this, their hormones and all this, right? But we don't really think about it with testosterone in men. Like they have the need to, for again, lack of a better word, do like man shit, right? Like go and I don't know, like stuff that men do.
Lift something heavy and put it down. Yeah.
And that leads to like, in the video, it led to anger and how their response, as for women, it's more like a sensitive touch, but with men, it's more leaning towards the anger side. And it's like, why are we telling men you shouldn't be angry rather than you could be angry,
but in
at a healthy
way.
Where it doesn't get out of control and you start taking it out on everybody. Because it's the same thing. If you're too sensitive, that could be a burden for a lot of people too.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting that I didn't really think about that before, but it's like, yeah, that's right. Because if a man starts doing stuff like that, you're just like, oh, he's just being like, it's his toxic masculinity, right? But nobody says toxic femininity when it's like the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that was interesting.
The way you described testosterone, and it's funny because Matt brought up a good point, how little boys are very chaotic, very destructive, and it's a lot of that. It really is. Growing up, and I think it does relate to the testosterone in your body. You know, where you have to do something physical. You know, which is why we play rough, or why we do like dangerous shit all the time. And it's almost like fire. You know, like fire is warm and very cozy, but if you don't tame it, don't control it, it's gonna fucking hurt somebody. Yeah. You know, and that goes back to the household. Like you need a well balanced father to guide his son and how to not be so destructive, you know, be able to keep that on check and have an outlet, you know.
And I see that with Joey, where he when he started, you know, expressing more of like his anger or frustration, he was very like, he would just get angry and yell, or and we got to the point where like, okay, I get that you're upset, but yelling and screaming isn't gonna help make you feel better. So what we do is, you know, we help him. We saw that, I think I saw it on TikTok, where you have them breathe in and out and like count. Yeah. And that really like brings it down for him. And if we count to 10, and if he's still like frustrated or angry, we just continue, and he gets to the point, okay. And then he'll let us know why he's angry, because he wouldn't express why he got angry or why he was frustrated. But once we do that, and then he calms down and he's like, oh, something fell, or whatever the case was. So we were able to finally understand, okay, well, this is why you're upset, as opposed to like figuring out while he's yelling, we're yelling over him like, shut up, or what do you want? Like, what happened? Because at that point, they're not listening to you. You're not, there's no communication there.
They just know that you're yelling at them. And it's like, why?
And they're just trying to, because they're kids. They don't know how to control their feelings. And this is where, as a parent, you step in. It's like, okay, I get that you're frustrated, but by you yelling, I can't help you feel better. So having him do the whole breathing exercise, that's something that really helps him.
That's beautiful. The fact that you as a mother do that for him is awesome. And I think that's an important part and not to assign roles for men and women, because I mean, it could be the opposite side, but you need someone to help him with the physical side of someone, but also the emotional side too. And I know, like women are obviously the far superior species when it comes to emotions, you know, and that's also meant you do that, you know, that's very important for him too. Like I feel like my mother herself, by the way, she's an awesome woman. I would say I think she's the most important person or the most important woman in my life. But her raising 4 kids on her own while my dad was working, it's kind of hard to make time to kind of sit down and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're instilling that in your kid is awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing for me, where people ask, like, when are you having a kid? Like, when are you having a second? It's like, I want to focus on this one I have here and raise them right and not have, like, anger issues. Like, I know I have anger issues. I know Derek for sure has. We are very impatient, very, like, we get frustrated really quick. And I'm still learning how to deal with those emotions. So I'm like, if I'm struggling, I can only imagine what a kid is feeling where they don't understand these emotions and they're just trying to, like, let it out. So it's like, okay, because it also tests me when I'm trying to calm him down, because I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting overstimulated with the little kid yelling. So I'm like, I have to check myself first. I'm like, hey, chill out. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't understand. And then at the same time, try and teach him, hey, like, I need you to calm down. So there's days where I have to walk away from him because I'm like, if I go to him right now, I'm not going to show him the best way to deal with things. Yeah. Because I'm frustrated. I'm overstimulated. So I'm like, I'll just walk out, or Derek will come in and he'll step in and try to calm him down. So that's the good thing between me and Derek, that if one of us is not going to react the best way, we learn to walk away and like, all right, let me take over. Let's not, go through...
Like, time, put me in, coach. Put me in.
Yeah. So that's the good thing, that even Derek, like, he understands, okay? Because we both were raised in a very traditional Mexican household. So it was la chancla, spanking, all the generic, hitting. And I would rather move away from that a little bit, try and, like, talk to him and explain to him. And luckily Derek is the same way, where he loves to explain things. Like, even prior to Joey being born, like, with his cousins and nephews or whatnot, he would, like, take the time to explain to them. And I'm like, they don't get it. Right? Like, they're not gonna be like, yeah, but I feel like I need to talk to them, not as a kid, but just as a human. Yeah. So that way they see me as, like, I'm not the adult, or I'm not, superior to them. Right. But they can come talk to me if anything happens. That's cool. Yeah. Which is, I get it, but I'm like, they don't get it though. But I see what he means, because he's very good with, like, kids. I'm just like, they ask questions and he's willing to answer them. Yeah. Like, instead of, like, I don't know, just take it, go.
Well, I mean, Derek loves to talk, so I feel like he's the right person for that,
Yeah. And I feel like that's also something else that could help, like, because there's a lot of busy parents out there, right? Sure. I feel like sports are very overlooked. They take up a lot of time, yes, but if it helps your kid, like, you could start doing karate from a very young age, or boxing, if that's what they need, because there are people that are like that. They're just wired that way. They have a lot where they have to, they have to take it out. And instead of just keeping them at home and, like, telling them, you shouldn't do that, give them a healthy outlet that they can, and they won't get in trouble for. And who knows, they can make a career out of it. Yeah.
And that's something that we're looking with Joey. We're like, okay, he's at that point where he wants to, do more. And I understand that him not having a sibling, like, he doesn't have that, like, playtime with somebody else. Like, it helps when he goes to school because he has his friends and whatnot. But then at home, like, there's only so much we can do to, like, keep him entertained. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let's look into getting to a sport or anything like that, so that way he can, experience other, like, little people like him, because then he is able to, interact with other kids. Because that's one thing that I noticed, that only children, they tend not to know how to socialize very well. And that's, like, something I don't want him to be like.
I'm sure there's a lot of kids like that nowadays, for sure, especially with COVID. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, it's kind of off topic with the whole thing, but it, kind of relates to what you're talking about, Joey. That's cool that that you're looking for something like that. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys seen, especially because I feel like it's blowing up more on TikTok, where it's being more talked about your inner child.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
We've been wanting to do an episode on that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, because sometimes when I look at kids, especially Joey, I'm stuttering. sometimes I'm amazed because this is the foundation of Joey's inner child forming, you know? And so like, it's cool that when we all hang up like yesterday, we're all just hanging out playing video games with him. The fact that he's going to remember that, even if he doesn't really remember the entire thing, he knows that like we're all there, you know? And I think that's a gorgeous thing to look back on.
Yeah. Because he always is like, oh, my friends, my friends. Which I love, because he's like, he always talks about, like I think there was a point where we hang out in like a couple weeks, and he's like, where are my friends?
That's cute.
They're
busy.
you know, they're adulting. They got responsibilities.
This is cool. My friends are old. But yeah, just to get back on the topic.
Yeah, I want to bring something up, and I feel like it relates to something I've been going through this year. And I this year's been really tough for me, personally. I was in a 3.5 year relationship, which ended at the end of December. So it was a rough patch to kind of jump into 2023. And you know, luckily I do have you guys, a great support group, and it's been, with mental issues, it has been hard to just kind of sit alone and constantly go through these moments in my life with my ex and replaying all the mistakes I made, and you know, beating myself up, being kind of harsh on myself, you know, like, you know, all the things we normally do when we know we fucked up. And that's part of the problem, the fact that we're so unkind to each other. It's and going back to the whole inner child, I kept looking and reading more of how you need to really treat yourself and look at yourself as almost like you're kind of like stepping away from who you are and looking at yourself objectively and viewing yourself as a little kid and making sure, like, you know, they're not fucking hurting themselves with physically or mentally, you know. And one thing I want to bring up though with women is that, and you guys could tell me if it's true or not, I'm curious to know your opinion, but obviously women are more emotionally equipped because they're more in touch with their emotions. I was reading that when a breakup occurs with, you know, between a man and a woman, men tend to kind of be okay in the beginning, almost be like kind of going about their life. And I think that's also part of the problem, that they kind of just put what they went through in the back burner, where eventually starts leaking back, and eventually everything just comes back at full force. As if for women, they feel everything in that moment and they mourn and they go through what they need to go through, but eventually, as soon as they're done with that, they moved on. So it's a lot harder for men to move on because we're not so much in touch with our feelings as if for women.
Okay. Because I have, it's obviously, this is just from my experience, and I'm not saying all women think like this, and there's obviously different situations, but I feel like at least the relationships I've had before, I've only really had one serious one before Matt, and it wasn't very healthy at all. And I think what made me be more okay with the breakup was that a few months before we broke up, I already knew that, like, this wasn't going anywhere. So I feel like I was just preparing myself, not to leave, but like, if this goes wrong, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I feel like women, before they even end a relationship, they've already in their head mentally gone through the breakup, even though they really haven't yet, because they got to the point where, okay, they tried everything they could and it's not changing. They just haven't pulled the trigger, and they've already mourned the breakup. They've already cried. They've already been angry and all this. And then at that point where they actually break up with you, they're like, that's it.
Yeah.
There's no looking back, and they've already gone through all the emotions. Yeah. So sometimes that's why they're like, okay, fairly after, because they've already done it in the relationship.
Right. But I also do want to say that that is not a very healthy thing to do, because if your partner is still putting in that work and they don't know that you already have it figured out, essentially. If you already know that this is what's going to happen, just cut it off. Don't bring them along while you're figuring it out for yourself in the future.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
And there's times where there is those girls who, end up just breaking up with the person and they haven't gone through the emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, they go through everything. They cry, they do, the mourning, and then they move forward. As opposed to some men, not saying all of them, but some of them, they're like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
They go party, do the thing, and then...
thinking that it'll fill that void for them.
and then they find out, like,
Guys, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. You could try it all you want.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel like
especially
shit.
if it's something that really meant something to you. Obviously, if it was a relationship where you guys were like a couple months in, there was not a lot.
Then that's understandable.
Then I'm sure you can move on fairly quick. But if it's something that you invested years in, and you feel like whatever, I'll just get with another girl.
Yeah.
Or I'll just fuck around and it'll go away. No, you have to go through the emotions and like mourn through the breakup.
Yeah. And there's no right way to go through it either. It's like, it's going to be different for everybody. But it's just finding out what works for you while you're also not hurting the other party.
Yeah.
So I got another question. Okay. So how would you
he starts interviewing us.
So hypothetically, how would you feel if there was, like, you found this maybe on TikTok or, word by mouth, that there was like a support group of men, right? Where they get together, they talk about like their feelings and they all hug it out and cry.
Okay.
How would you?
I think that'd be really healthy.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay.
I mean, because
it's a support group.
Yeah, because I feel like more men need that.
Yeah.
Men, yes, sometimes they have like their friends, like their boys, but they don't talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
So they're like, if something is bugging them, they don't talk it out. Like with us, with our group, like if say I get an argument with Derek or you get an argument with Matt and we're like frustrated and upset, we'll talk about it. Yeah. And they're like, and then one of us is like, okay, yeah, that's valid. Or like, you know what, actually Matt was right.
Yeah.
Or whatnot.
And that's where you have to realize that, yes, just because you're friends doesn't mean that you always have to take their side. If they're in the wrong, you shouldn't feel like you can't tell them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're also, that's not real friendship.
Yeah.
And
that's also something I noticed when you were talking about how, like, you and the guys feel like you're at that point now. And that's interesting because I think it's true that groups of guys, that's not something that comes up quickly. Because I feel like we've only known each other for, like, what? Like, 4 or 5 years?
However, Joey's old. 5 years? Because Joey was just about to turn a year.
That's half a decade.
And
well, I just had, like, an epiphany.
Fabi has been less.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been talking about our issues for a while now. But we never really stopped to think, like, oh, like, are we pushing it? It just feels like, is this not what everybody does?
Yeah.
But again, that could be where, like, it's a nature thing, right? You look at animals, because animals aren't like humans. You could teach them to do stuff, but they have their own ways, right? Most of the time, the female is the nurturing, and the male is like the one that's just popping out the kids and doing its thing,
Yeah.
So, and who's to say that doesn't happen with humans? And, like, you can't, like, just get rid of it. So you just gotta adapt with it. And yeah, it's just something I noticed between, like, when I see groups of men, and it's like, when Matt would talk to me about, like, how your guys' conversations would go sometimes, of how I don't know if he wants me to say this. So I'll say it, but I'll ask him, and if he doesn't want it, then you could cut
take it off.
But a couple months ago, when he got really drunk, he told me that he got upset because he told you guys he didn't like that he had to get that drunk to feel like he could talk to you about that stuff. And it's like, that's really sad. Like,
yeah.
And that's just Matt. How many other men and women feel like that, And that's not something I don't know how the right way to say this is, but it's very, like, you shouldn't think that way. And I know I shouldn't say that, but that's why I feel like we should all just treat each other the same. Like, at one point, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You have feelings. You have, like, you need to talk about things. Because if you don't, you're just not going to be happy. And finding that right outlet for you doesn't matter if it's with men or women or both, as long as you're respectful. And yeah, it doesn't need to be like a gender thing,
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing that we did a few months back was with our friend circle. One of the boys was acting not the way we wanted him to act. Like he was borderline being a little disrespectful, and the fact that we were able to, before we went to him, we wanted to go with the boy, like the other boys,
right?
And say, hey, your guy, like, can you check
your
him?
guy, yeah.
Check him, or we will have to talk to him because it's not okay. It's making us feel uncomfortable. And yeah, they were able to talk to him, and he apologized, and we moved forward, as opposed to we could have easily just been
cut him off.
Been upset and like not talk to him, and if he was over, we just
give
shun
attitude
him or whatever. But the fact that we were able to talk to you guys and say, hey, please talk to your boy, because it's we don't like the way he's going about things, and the fact that you guys were able to talk to him, and luckily he was able to realize, okay, I fucked up,
Yeah. That answers my question. Thank you.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up, right? I mean, there's obviously a lot of more things we could talk about, and I feel like as the world gets older, there's just going to be more things popping up. But I think like a real message, you should really just think about whether you're like a hardcore feminist or a hardcore, is there a word?
Meninism.
It's not even a word. Doesn't even exist.
If you're a hardcore meninist, just think about it that way. Like, not everything needs to be gender-based. Like, we're just people. We're just people living on a big rock in a speck. Possibly an elephant is holding us. Hopefully anybody got that Horton Hears a Who reference.
We all have problems.
Yeah.
We all have our own individual problems, and they're all different, but nonetheless they're problems nonetheless. And I think the important part is to lean on each other, whether you're a man or a woman. I feel like there's definitely an understanding on both sides, and definitely something to learn on both sides. I think as long as you open a dialogue and you're open-minded and you listen, I feel like there's a lot to be learned,
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. It was a little more
on the serious side.
Yeah, we try to make it a little bit. Yeah. But thank you for coming, Steve.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. We'll see you in a few months. But do you want to plug the podcast?
No.
Okay. We're refurbishing.
Yeah, we're reworking it, so it's fine.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, Steve. If you want to follow our podcast, TikTok, Instagram, at 2 Girls and a Mic. Our personal ones are in the description below. And with that being said, you guys will see and hear us on the next one.
Bye.
Take care, guys.